You walk into a store, same items, same shelves, same brands, but the price tags look wrong. Milk is higher, bread is higher, cooking oil, much higher. So you assume the obvious. Demand must be booming. People must be buying more, except they're not. Sales are flat, in some cases, falling. So why are prices still going up? That's the part nobody explains properly, because this isn't a demand story, it's something quieter, stranger, and a lot more uncomfortable. Let's start with what we've all been taught. Prices go up when demand goes up. Too many people chasing too few goods. Basic supply and demand. Simple, clean, logical, and sometimes completely wrong, because there's another force in the system. One that doesn't care whether people are buying more or less. One that can push prices higher even when shelves are full and customers are walking away. Costs. Imagine you run a small bakery. Nothing fancy. Just bread, coffee, maybe a few pastries. Last year, flour cost you $20 per sack. Now it costs $32. Electricity, up 40%. Rent, just increased. Your workers, they need higher pay because their rent and food went up too. So even if fewer people are coming into your shop, your costs are rising anyway. And that changes everything. Here's the uncomfortable math. If your cost to make one loaf of bread goes from $1 to $1.50, but customers refuse to pay more, you don't sell more bread. You lose money, so you raise the price. Not because people are buying more, but because you can't afford not to. This is called cost push inflation. But that term makes it sound technical, abstract, almost harmless. It's not. It's a chain reaction. Because your bakery isn't alone. The flour supplier is paying more for wheat. The farmer is paying more for fuel, fertilizer, equipment. The trucking company is paying more for diesel. The power company is dealing with higher input costs. At every step, someone raises prices just to survive, not to profit more, to avoid going under. And here's where it gets strange. Demand can actually fall during this process because higher prices mean people buy less. They cut back, delay purchases, switch to cheaper options. So you get this weird situation. People are buying less, but prices keep rising anyway. It feels broken because it is. Now zoom out. This isn't just about bread. It's happening across entire economies. Energy prices spike, shipping costs surge, supply chains break, currencies weaken, and suddenly businesses everywhere are facing higher costs at the same time. So they all start raising prices. Not aggressively, not greedily, but defensively. And this creates a kind of economic illusion. From the outside, it looks like inflation driven by demand. But underneath, it's businesses struggling to stay alive in a system where everything costs more. Now here's where things get even more uncomfortable. Because not all costs are real. Some are financial, invisible, and they spread faster than anything physical. Interest rates. When central banks raise rates, borrowing becomes more expensive. For companies, that means higher loan payments, higher credit costs, more expensive financing for inventory, expansion, even day-to-day operations. So what do businesses do? They pass those costs on into prices. So now you have a situation where demand is falling, borrowing is more expensive, and prices are still rising at the same time. That's not supposed to happen in the simple version of economics, but this isn't the simple version. Let's take it one step further. Expectations. If businesses believe costs will keep rising, they raise prices today, even if current demand doesn't justify it, because waiting could mean getting trapped with higher costs tomorrow. So inflation becomes preemptive, almost psychological. Prices rise not just because of what is happening, but because of what might happen. And consumers feel it, even if they don't understand the mechanics. They just know life is getting more expensive. So they react. They spend faster before prices go up again. Or they cut spending completely. Both reactions can make the system more unstable. Now here's the irony. Lower demand doesn't always fix inflation. Because if demand falls too much, businesses don't lower prices. They cut supply. They produce less, lay off workers, shut down operations, which reduces supply further, and keeps prices elevated. So instead of prices falling, you get stagnation, slow growth, high prices, a strange economic state where nothing feels like it's working properly. This is why some of the most frustrating economic periods feel confusing, because the old rules don't seem to apply. You're told people are spending less, but your expenses keep rising. You're told the economy is slowing, but nothing is getting cheaper. Now let's talk about the part people argue about the most: corporate greed. It's an easy explanation, and sometimes it's part of the story, but it's not the full picture. Because in many cases, companies are raising prices simply to maintain margins, not expand them. If their costs go up 30% and they raise prices 30%, they're not making more money, they're standing still. Barely. And in competitive industries, if they don't raise prices, they disappear quietly, without headlines. So the system isn't just driven by demand or greed, it's driven by pressure. Relentless, layered pressure from every direction. Now, zoom out even further. This doesn't just affect prices, it reshapes entire economies. Industries consolidate, small businesses struggle. Large companies with more pricing power survive. Inequality widens because some people can pass on costs and others can't. And here's the part that rarely gets said out loud. When prices rise while demand falls, it's often a sign that something deeper is wrong. Not just a temporary imbalance, but a structural strain in the system itself. Too much debt, too much reliance on cheap energy, too many fragile supply chains, too much sensitivity to small disruptions. So when a shock hits, the system doesn't adjust smoothly, it fractures, and those fractures show up as rising prices in places where they shouldn't be rising. Now think about where we are today. Global supply chains are still recovering, energy markets volatile, debt levels high, interest rates shifting, and consumers getting tired. So the next time you see prices rising, while people around you are clearly spending less, don't assume it's a simple story. It's not. It's a signal that the system is under stress. Because in a healthy system, lower demand brings lower prices. Balance restores itself, quietly, naturally. But when that doesn't happen, when prices keep climbing anyway, you're not looking at normal inflation anymore, you're looking at something more fragile, more complex, and potentially more dangerous. So here's the real question. If prices can rise even when people are buying less, what happens when demand finally breaks completely and there's no one left to pass the cost to? And this is where things stop being theoretical and start getting personal. Because eventually someone in this chain can't pass the cost forward. Not the farmer, not the trucker, not the business, and definitely not the customer. That's when the system starts choosing winners and losers, quietly, brutally. Think about a household for a second. Income stays the same, but food is up, fuel is up, rent is up, utilities are up. So what happens? They don't negotiate with reality. They cut something. Maybe they stop eating out. Maybe they cancel subscriptions. Maybe they delay buying things they actually need. And on paper, that looks like falling demand, which in theory should bring prices down. But it doesn't, because those businesses they stopped buying from are going through the exact same pressure cycle. The restaurant they stopped visiting, their ingredients cost more. Their electricity costs more. Their staff expects higher wages, so even with fewer customers, they raise prices, or shrink portions, or both. So the customer cuts back even more. And the loop continues. This is how an economy slowly tightens without anyone announcing it. No single moment, no dramatic collapse, just a steady squeeze. From both sides. Costs rising, demand falling, and prices stuck in between, still climbing. Now here's something even more subtle. Not all price increases are visible. Some are hidden, and they're everywhere. The cereal box gets smaller, but the price stays the same. Your streaming service adds ads, but doesn't lower the fee. Airlines charge for things that used to be free. Banks introduce new maintenance fees. This is inflation without the label. Quiet adjustments designed to survive the same pressure. Because lowering the actual price? That's dangerous for a business. Once you drop prices, it's hard to raise them again without losing trust. So instead, companies find ways to increase what you pay without saying it directly. And now the system becomes even harder to read because official numbers might say inflation is slowing, but your real cost of living doesn't feel like it is. Because part of the increase isn't being measured cleanly, it's disguised. Now let's talk about time. Because this kind of inflation doesn't hit all at once, it moves in waves. First, energy spikes, then transportation, then food, then services, then wages try to catch up, but they rarely do, fully. So the pressure never resets, it just moves. And during that time, businesses adapt, consumers adapt, governments react, sometimes too late, sometimes too aggressively. Central banks raise interest rates to slow things down, to reduce demand, to cool the economy. But remember what we said earlier. Demand isn't the only driver here. So what happens? Higher interest rates increase borrowing, which feeds back into business expenses, which feeds back into prices. So the tool designed to stop inflation can sometimes keep parts of it alive. This is why controlling this kind of inflation is so difficult, because you're not fixing a single problem. You're dealing with a web of pressures, all connected, all reinforcing each other.